Hey guys, hey, my name is Steph, and this video is long overdue. Basically, today was just going to be my February wrap up, and then I realized I never actually wrapped up in January. And while it is well and truly not January or February anymore, I thought maybe just for like a personal record, I should just quickly go through the books that I read in January and then do like a bit more of a conclusive section for my February wrap up. So, this first section, I'm not going to be showing you any books. They're either all put away on shelves, unhauled, lent out to people. So we're not going to be doing all of that. I'm just going to go through as quickly as I can the books that I read in January before, like I said, we jump into a regular February wrap up. Now, I have read 48 books so far this year in January and February combined. So we have quite a bit to discuss. I'm not going to be super edited and super polished. This is just to get the January wrap up into the internet. I was going to say department, into the internet for future reference. So I started off the year with a novella. I read The Strange Library by Murakami. I gave it 2 stars. This was the first and only Murakami piece of fiction I've ever read. My brother is currently in a heavy Murakami phase, and this was me like dipping my toe in. It was very short. I didn't necessarily understand the point of it. I think it just went over my head, so 2 stars. Next, I read Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I gave that one a 3-star. Very, very short book. Quite interesting, but I don't know how much of that information I retained. Basically, it is explaining, it goes through tuberculosis, some of the history, some of the things we have today that were caused by tuberculosis, or countries in the world that still face TB. Like, it's very, very common. So it was an interesting read. I'm glad that I got it from my library and didn't pay for it. Next, I read The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. This was another nonfiction, so I read 2 nonfictions back to back. Who is she? This one I gave a 2.5 star. It was fine. There were some case studies in this book that were interesting. It basically follows some strange phenomena that occur in people with psychological problems. And like I said, it was interesting, but it was very, very outdated. I can imagine that at the time the book was written and published, a lot of these concepts and a lot of these case studies would have been shocking to people. But it is 2026. I think the book was written in the 70s, possibly. So 50 years later, like, none of these things surprised me. It just wasn't, yeah. I don't think it's held up very well over time, so 2.5 stars. It was completely average. Next, I read Never Let Me Go. I gave this one 4 stars. I loved the movie as a kid. It was like one of my comfort movies, and I always intended on reading the book and then never did. For some reason this year I decided it was the year, so I read the book for the first time. 4 stars for me is like, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was such a good book, and then I went and rewatched the movie, and I actually ended up liking the book more, which I thought I would like the movie more because of nostalgia, but overall, it is a really, really great book. It's a really great movie, and it's a great adaptation, so I would recommend both to you if you have not encountered that piece of fiction. Next, we have Blue Sisters. Now, this one I gave 4 stars. It was a very, very slow burn book. I gave it 4 stars because, like, it was important. It told a really beautiful story. But there wasn't a lot of plot. We are basically delving into these 3 sisters' relationships with each other, and I guess with the rest of their universes, their worlds, after their 4th sister dies unexpectedly. And it just, yeah, shows the aftermath of the grief that each of the sisters left behind deals with, but they are such different people. So the way that they deal with their grief and the way that they mourn and the way that they take that death and let it affect their other relationships were all very, very different. Like I said, there's not a lot of plot. Like, there were, I guess, storylines, but it was definitely more of a character study than anything else. I gave it 4 stars. Next, I read Bad Dolls by Rachel Harrison. This is a short story collection of 4 stories that are all horror themed. For a collection of anything, a 4-star is really, really strong. They were just like quirky, fun little stories. My favorite one was the one that followed the bachelorette party. I don't remember the title, but it was the best. We Live Here Now by Sarah Pinborough. This was my favorite book of January. It was a 5-star read. This book was like a horror thriller with like that Sarah Pinborough quirk. I'm not going to spoil literally anything apart from the fact that it is following a married couple moving to this house, and the wife starts experiencing weird things, hearing things, seeing things. The husband kind of thinks she's losing her marbles just a tiny bit, and that is all I'm gonna say. I loved it. I would highly recommend. Next, I read You Are the View. I gave it a 4-star. Now, I will say, while I only listened to the audio, so I didn't physically read this at all. I really enjoyed listening to the audio. I think I was working on like a miniature kit or a cross stitch. I was doing something with my hands while I was listening, and it was a great book to just have on in the background. However, I'm going to be honest, next time I do a massive unhaul of all my books, I think that one's probably going to go. It was fun. It was light. It's a road trip book. I love road trip books. I just don't know if it's going to hold up over time, and it probably won't, and that's fine, but I still gave it a 4-star. Like, I did really enjoy it. Next, I read Hot for Slayer by Ali Hazelwood. Hot for Slayer was such a cute concept. It follows a vampire and the slayer that has been hunting her down for centuries, and I guess the plot really picks up when he has amnesia. And he doesn't know their relationship. He can't remember their relationship. And she's like, oh my god, it's so weird. Like, he usually wants to kill me. And when he's not trying to kill me, he's actually really nice. 5-star. Absolutely loved it. Then I read Falling. I think this was the one by Christina Lauren. I gave it 2.5 stars. It was a very confused novella. It's like we have our main, like, monster, our main creature. He's like an angel, like a fallen angel slash an incubus. But he's also like an immortal, like a cursed immortal. It was just very strange. I didn't like hate it. It was just like completely average. Like, I finished it and I was like, next from that series was Spicy Little Curses. I gave this one a 3-star, mainly for the main 2 characters and their banter. It was another one of those book novellas that I didn't fully understand, like, the why. I feel like things are just kind of thrown out, and as the reader we just had to go like, okay, cool. I gave it 3 stars. Next I read If Only You by Chloe Lees. This was the, I think, 6th book in the Bergman Brothers series. In all fucking honesty, guys, I gave it a 4-star. I don't really remember it. From memory, it was Ziggy's story. Next, I read Space Vampire by Ruby Dixon, another one of the Amazon original novellas. This one was kind of fun because Ruby Dixon does this thing where she does not take herself too seriously. This is like an alien space vampire, like technically an alien, a like test tube alien that was created that feeds on blood. And it was just like lighthearted fun. The main character and this space vampire get left behind on a spaceship, and they like need to try and figure out how to get away from the spaceship before their captors come back. It was quick, fun. I was actually very entertained, so I gave it 4 stars. Then we had Beautiful Nightmare. This was so fun. This was like Monsters Inc., but make it a romance, okay? So we're following our main character. She's a demon, and her job is basically to enter people's bedrooms and feed on their fear as a paralysis demon. But she's no good at scaring people. And the first guy that she's meant to scare and like feed off of ends up being hella attracted to her. It was funny, it was light, it was camp. I gave it 5 stars. And then the last novella in that series was called My Boyfriends Are All Monsters. I gave this book a 1 star. Honestly, probably worth half a star. There was nothing redeemable about this novella to me. I did not like it whatsoever. I found the main character absolutely insufferable. I found her love interest not only incredibly fucking creepy. Like, I read dark romances, okay? I read monster romances. I read, like, dominant, overprotective male characters all the time. But this male character was genuinely just fucking creepy. Like, I don't want to get into spoilers, because, like, how would I even spoil it for you when I don't understand what the fuck he was? But he was, like, a god. He was, like, an entire town. He was the buildings, the scenery, all the people. Like, it was such a fucking bizarre novella. So, unfortunately, that one really, really sucked for me. Next, I read The Gathering Dark, which was a folk horror anthology, and I gave it 2.5 stars, which is pretty normal for a short story collection. This one just didn't have anything super memorable. I think there was one story by Chloe Gong that I really, really enjoyed. I don't really remember any of the other short stories in this collection, and I wasn't a super fan of it. Next, we've got The Last Housewife by Ashley Winstead. This book was surprisingly good. I will say, very, very slow start. Like, I was not intrigued until, like, the 100-page mark. However, just like a little FYI to anyone who didn't know, it's a cult book. I did not know this, but cult book. We love a cult book. Well, we either love them or hate them. We loved this one, so that was really entertaining. That was great. Next, I read Only and Forever by Chloe Lees, the 7th book in the Bergman Brothers series. This one followed Vigo. He was such a sweet, innocent, like, I hated him throughout the entire series. He was my least favorite sibling. I'm like, this man needs to grow the fuck up. Like, he's acting like an actual toddler. And then his book happened, and it was like, he explains that he acts out because of his insecurities, and he was such a cutie, and he owned a bookstore, and I loved his book. So I gave it the same rating as Ziggy's book. Honestly, Ziggy's should probably be rated lower, but Only in Forever, 4 stars, solid book, really enjoyed it, lovely way to wrap up the series. Next we have Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I don't want to say I hate that I'm a Sally Rooney girl, but like, I feel like saying I'm a Sally Rooney girly makes me sound so pretentious. But anyway, I don't actually care. I gave it 4.5 stars. Beautiful World, Where Are You follows these two friends who are kind of like, they still love each other, they still care about each other, but they've just kind of grown distant. And while they do talk to each other, neither of them really seems to want to bridge that gap, because they've also both got a lot of other things happening in their lives. It was really interesting. Like all of Sally Rooney's books so far, it just seems to be more of a character study. Like, look at these humans, look at how flawed they are, but look how, despite their flaws and the shitty things they've done and the shitty things done to them, they kind of persevere. It's very much the human experience, and I think that's why I love reading Sally Rooney's books, because her characters are so real, you know? Next I read, Piranesi. I gave this one 3.5 stars. So I don't necessarily understand the hype. I feel like Piranesi, like, people rave about how amazing this book was. I don't think it was amazing. I think it was interesting, adventurous, and more than anything, sad. I don't want to spoil it too much, but basically it follows this character who is being called Piranesi by his companion, his associate, and Piranesi lives in this house, and this house is big and it is infinite, and he loves this house. He loves exploring this house. He knows that he's never going to run out of things to explore and discover, and he has all he needs, and he loves this house. But that is not how the book continues. It gets to a point where Piranesi's routine is shaken up a little bit. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but by the end, I didn't know how to feel. I just mostly felt sad for this character who it made me sad, but I did give it 3.5 stars. It was better than average. I'm going to keep it, but like, I don't know, my feelings were very mixed by the end. Then I read A Clockwork Orange. Now, I gave this a 4 star. It's probably closer to a 4.5. I will say the first, like, 50 pages, I actually had a printed, like, dictionary for A Clockwork Orange, because, don't know if you guys know this, A Clockwork Orange is written, like, entirely in slang. Like, I got my mom to read the first paragraph, and I got my brother to read the first paragraph, and I'm like, can you tell me what this means? Neither of them knew. So, there is a bit of a learning curve. But by the end, I was well and truly educated in the slang. Now, basic story, A Clockwork Orange follows this 14-year-old named Alex, who is a fucking, like, stain on society. He gets into gang fights, he sexually assaults girls, and he just doesn't give a shit. Doesn't go to school, does drugs, and, like, he's basically just a terrible fucking human. And then the book kind of delves into try and cure Alex, and it's a pretty interesting book. I really enjoyed it. And then I did end up watching or rewatching the movie adaptation A Clockwork Orange, and overall, again, really strong adaptation. Like, if you can't be bothered with the book, definitely watch the movie. I think it's a pretty similar experience. But anyway, really enjoyed the book. Next I read Fabulous, which was a short story collection. This was a collection of myth and fairy tale and biblical retellings. So, short story collection, 2.75 average star rating, pretty typical. I have since unhauled Fabulous. I really, really wanted to like it, and there were 1 or 2 stories in that collection that I did enjoy, but for the most part, I just felt a little uncomfy reading it, like, especially the biblical retellings. Like, as someone who was raised Catholic, and has Catholic relatives, like, it just felt blasphemous, and, like, I can't unlearn that. I can't rewire my brain to be like, oh, but all religions are myths. Like, in my head, even if I don't necessarily believe the Bible, I think writing a retelling of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, especially, like, so explicitly, it just made me uncomfy. That's probably the reason like the main reason I unhauled it. I'm never going to reread it. But there were a couple of interesting retellings, so read it if you want to. It just wasn't for me. Next, I read 7 Year Itch by Amy Dawes. This was another romance that was really fun to read at the time. I gave it 4 stars, but again, in hindsight, next time I do a big like clear out of my bookshelves, it's probably not going to make the cut. It's like I said, fun, quick, easy to get through, but I did not enjoy it as much as the first book. It just felt like a less well-told story. I didn't really love the characters. I didn't really vibe with the characters. So 4 stars, but probably won't be on my shelves that long. Then I read a new release. I read Beth is Dead. So if you don't know, Beth is Dead is a very loose retelling of Little Women. In this book, Beth's death is suspicious. All 3 sisters are suspects in her murder. Basically, it is just a whodunit situation. I really enjoyed it. I liked seeing the sisters' past POVs and present POVs. I liked trying to figure out what was happening, and I like that while it was technically a Little Women retelling, you don't have to know or like Little Women to read it, because I did not like Little Women. I don't like most classics, but especially Little Women. I was so bored by that book, and I'm so glad that Beth is Dead was like heavily referenced the source material without being like a direct retelling, if that makes sense. Anyway, 4.5 stars to Beth is Dead. Next, I read Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy. Now, I really loved I'm Glad My Mum Died. I think that memoir was so powerful, was so important. So this book follows our main character, a girl named Waldo. She's, I think, 17, and basically she chases her teacher and seduces her teacher, and even though he's a grown man who should say no, he like falls into this affair with her and doesn't stop it, which again, he's the grown man, he should have, like, I get all that, but Waldo does do the chasing. Like, she's not being actively pursued by this teacher as much as she's pursuing him. That's all irrelevant. This is a book, I don't want to say grooming, I don't know how to explain it, an illegal and inappropriate relationship, right, which should be emotional and should have, you know, a bit of depth to it, and it just felt very surface level for me. I gave it 3 stars because it was a quick book. I always find books about relationships like that interesting, but I didn't love the writing style and I didn't love the ending, so it wasn't a win for me. Next, I read Through Gates of Garnet and Gold, which is the newest book in the Wayward Children series. I gave this one a 4 star. Definitely not on the like higher end of my rankings. It was fine. This book, we are following Nancy in the underworld, so that felt like a weird choice because Nancy was in the first book. She was like the main character in the first book. Then we see Nancy again because our little group of quest seekers need her help. Cool. Nancy's in the underworld. She's happy. She sees her friends. She says bye to her friends. This book, there's trouble in the underworld, so she goes back to her friends. They come back to the underworld, and it was just kind of like, let Nancy be happy. Let's leave Nancy in the underworld where she's happy and where she belongs. But second of all, spoilers alert, why the fuck are we still using Jill as a villain? I'm so sorry. Jill has been the villain in every book that's had a villain. Like, anytime anything bad has happened, it's usually been Jill's fault. There's fireworks outside my window right now. It is fucking 10:30 at night. Anyway, yeah, when I found out, like, you know, we know that something's happening in the underworld, and, oh, who's doing this? Who could be behind this? Jill? We're seriously, like, why are we still bringing in if there is another book set in present day where Jill pops back up as the villain, I'm going to be done with this series. Like, I gave it a 4 star because I love the world and I love the characters, but overall, this was not my favorite book, and I think we should just leave Jill dead in the ground. Like, we don't need to keep bringing her back up. Like, let's go see how Jack is doing. Like, why are we still bringing up Jill? Anyway, moving swiftly along, the next book I read was, Trixie and Katja's Guide to Womanhood. I read this for a specific reading challenge I'm doing this year. It was fine. What did I give it? 3 stars. Yeah, it was about a 3 star. It was very much a coffee table book that I did not read as a coffee table book. I just sat and read it from cover to cover. And yeah, it was a bit bizarre because, like, it was kind of like advice for women, but it was like also jokey. So none of the advice, like, I wouldn't take like 80% of that advice seriously, but the other 20%, like, you should take serious. It was a very strange read. I didn't dislike it. It was funny. I loved seeing some of the photos of Trixie and Katja throughout, but, like, would I recommend it? Probably not. Next, I read Bad Dreams in the Night by Adam Ellis. This is a graphic novel, short story, horror collection. Loved it, loved it. Can't say enough. Such a fun book. I loved some of the concepts he delved into, and I loved that each short story had a little explanation at the end on how he came up with that concept or why he wanted to write that story. So really loved that one. Then I read You'll Never Be Forgotten. This short story collection by Mary South follows, I guess, human connections, human relationships, but also like death and life and technology. Very weird girl. A little bit reminiscent of Out There by Kate Folk, which is my favorite short story collection ever. I gave it a 3.25 overall, which is pretty good for a short story collection, but within that 3.25 there is like a lot of 5 stars and then like a couple of 1 stars, you know what I mean? And the last book I read in January was called Let Me In Your Window, also by Adam Ellis, also a 5-star. Again, really loved it. That was January, okay? That is the big chunk of this video. That's gonna get like the least amount in editing, so let's swiftly move us into February. So we started off February with a reread. So I reread An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. I have read this before. I initially gave this book, I think, a 3-star when I first read it. This time around I gave it a 4.5. This book was, it's just so fun. It's like a fun, fresh sci-fi. We are following our main character, April, and one night she's walking to the subway after work and she notices like this robot-looking statue that wasn't there just before. So she calls her friend, they film like a quirky little YouTube video, they post it, and then we find out the morning after that April is the first person who has interacted with these statues that have popped up all across the globe it's in like capital cities or like populous cities. And yeah, she was the first one to touch one of these statues, which the world has dubbed Carls because April named the statue Carl, so that's what they are known as now. And it basically follows the world's reaction to these strange statues that have just shown up on Earth one day. It delves into April and her newfound social media fame and how that affects her and her relationships. And I just overall really, really love this book, okay? Then I finally got the audiobook of Dear Debbie from my library by Freida McFadden. Now, Dear Debbie, I didn't even read what this book was about because it's a Freida McFadden book. It's going to be a short, fun thriller, so let's just jump into it, right? So I had no idea what I was getting myself into, no idea what this book is about. I still didn't really understand what this book was about until like 20 or 30% of the way into the book. So if you don't know what it's about and you don't want to know, maybe skip to the next book. This book follows a woman named Debbie who just wants the perfect life. She wants the perfect life, like she's had a pretty shitty past. She just wants the perfect life for her, her husband, and her 2 daughters. And she will stop at nothing to get it. Now, this woman is just like revenge on wheels. I loved her. Like, I am very much that same energy. Like, I can be calm, nice, polite, very civil, but as soon as you mess with someone I love, like, you better fucking get someone to check your water bottle every time you take a drink because there's probably gonna be poison in it. You know, I'm that crazy bitch. I related to it, and I actually really enjoyed this book. It just felt fresh for Freida. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Then I picked up the sequel to An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, which is called A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. Unfortunately, I did not love this as much as I wanted to, so I did give it a 4-star. It was probably closer to a 3.5. It's just that this book is significantly longer than the first book, and without getting into anything because it is a direct sequel, the first book just followed April's perspective the entire book. This one, we follow like her friends' POVs the entire first 100 pages, which was interesting. It was interesting. It was new. I did want to read their perspectives, but I was also like, April's perspective was so fun. She was just like a young adult stuck in a new situation that she'd never been in. I really enjoyed her perspective. Then reading from her friends' perspectives wasn't, I guess it wasn't as relatable to me. Like, I related to April quite a lot as a character. I didn't relate to her friends quite as much. So I gave it a 4, probably closer to a 3.5, but I still really enjoyed this duology, and I'm glad that I finally got to tick off a series from my series tracker. Next, I read Several People Are Typing. This book was just, it was fun. It was a little like mysterious. It was a little bit spooky, and it was a little bit romantic. This book follows a man, Gerald. Gerald is on his computer and next minute his consciousness is in Slack, like the messaging system, and he's like thinking slash typing to people, guys, I'm stuck in Slack, can someone help get me out of Slack, I don't know what I'm doing in Slack. And everyone thinks it's a joke, and everyone's like, oh, it's just a prank, oh, he's just working from home today. It was weird. It was a weird little book, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it, so I gave it a 4-star. Next, I picked up a book. Now, this was on my 26 and 26 list, so I'm glad I got to it. It is called Foul is Fair by Hannah Capin. This book is a Macbeth retelling. Now, as someone who doesn't really delve into Shakespeare all that much, ever, I was worried I was going to be very lost in this book, but while, like, I think right before the end, I decided to actually just look up a brief summary of Macbeth. For someone who hasn't read Macbeth, I would say that this is like a strong Macbeth retelling. We're following a girl named Jade. This isn't a spoiler. Within the first like 3 pages, we learn that Jade and her 3 best friends go to a party where Jade is sexually assaulted. From memory, it doesn't get super graphic, like we're very much not in the room where it happens, but she and her friends like reconvene after this party, and they all agree that they are going to get revenge on every person involved with facilitating this sexual assault. And that's where the book picks up. And Jade was such a cold, callous character, and I loved it. It made sense to me. Really loved it. I do think that this might be written in a way that some people can't really get behind. Like, it took a couple of chapters for me to understand and enjoy the writing style, but it is told in very short chapters. Like, they're basically vignettes. And yeah, for someone who hasn't read Macbeth, I would say that this is a strong Macbeth retelling, but I don't think my opinion's worth much. Either way, I gave this 4 stars. Next, I read a book called From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler. Me and my mom both read this. It's on a list of 100 books to read before you die that we're both trying to complete very slowly at our own pace. I gave this book 3 stars. We are following 2 kids, essentially. I think they're like 10 and 12 years old, who decide to run away from home and live in the Met. And I gave 3 stars. Like, I'm not a kid. I'm not going to reread this book. I think it was cute, okay? I think it was a cute book. Especially, like, can you imagine running away from home and living in a fucking museum and not getting caught? It was so fun. It was so cute. I would recommend, like, if anyone has kids or really enjoys reading middle grade, give this one a shot if you haven't. But I give it 3 stars. Like, it was a good book. It wasn't written for me, and I'm never going to reread it, you know? I don't know if you can tell. I don't know. Does my face look swollen? I got 2 wisdom teeth out, like, 4 days ago. That's why I sound a little bit weird. The next book I read is a comic. I think it's a comic. What's the difference between a comic and a graphic novel anyway? It is called Ice Cream Man. So this is volume 1, which I think has the first 12 episodes of the... It's either a webcomic or a graphic novel. I don't know. So this is our main character, the Ice Cream Man. He is like the villain in this series. He's like the dark one who causes chaos. And I gave this series as a whole, or this part of the series, a 3.5 star. It was fun. It was pitched as Black Mirror-esque. It's definitely not that. It is very much supernatural. Some episodes were very trippy and like didn't really make sense to me. I do want to continue reading this, but I don't want to pay for another hardcover. Anyways, by the end of this collection, there is an opposing force to the Ice Cream Man, which I enjoyed. I like seeing like very much good guy versus bad guy. I liked this, but not enough to pick up the next book in this collection, or this series rather. Next, I read Misery by Stephen King. I have read a couple of Stephen King things here and there, but like Misery is my favorite Stephen King movie adaptation. I love Kathy Bates. I love her. Misery is just such a good movie to me. Like, I watched it recently. I think I watched it in October for Halloween. It's such a good movie. I could like actually watch this movie like every week for the rest of my life. This book, slightly different, guys. The basic premise is the same. Guy gets into a car crash, wakes up to this lovely lady named Annie saving his life, and she nurses him back to health. And she's also a fan of his books because he's a best-selling author. She loves his books. She's his #1 fan. She's so kind and gracious, and she nurses Paul, our main character, back to health. This was unhinged. Like, guys, first of all, I'm just gonna throw it out there. Paul in the movie seems very nice, very polite, until he sees Annie's crazy side, and then he's like, oh shit, I need to be a bit more cautious, but I'm still gonna placate her. Paul in the book is a little bit ungrateful. Like, before he even knows she's crazy, he's like, she's literally giving him mouth to mouth. Like, she's giving him CPR because he's dying. He's literally like, oh, her breath tastes terrible, her breath. He says, and I quote, and she raped him full of her air again. He compares getting CPR to save his life to being raped by her bad breath. It was like a wild time. Like, Paul in this book is really hard to root for because he's not a super likable character. But I digress. Annie in the movie is like a level 5 crazy. Annie in the book is like a solid 9.5. This bitch is fucking psychotic. In the movie, okay, she beats his ankles with, what is it, like a mallet? Because he's left his room and tried to explore her house, and she's like, no, babe, we don't play that way, right? In the book, in this little baby, she doesn't hit his ankles. She cuts off his fucking foot. Literally, just gets an axe, cuts off his fucking foot. You know what she does later on? She does this really fun thing where she cuts off his thumb with an electric kitchen knife, right? And he's traumatized and he passes out. And then later on, she brings him a birthday cake, and he's like, how weird, it's not my birthday. And it turns out that instead of a candle in the middle of the cake, she puts his thumb. She's unhinged. In the movie, it's like, oh, she's like you know, like Dr. Death and like Angels of Death, all the nurses that have killed fucking infants because they're psychotic. It's implied and shown that that is what Annie's done. That she was a nurse, she killed babies, not good, she lost her job. In this, she doesn't just kill babies. She kills her family, she kills her friends, she kills babies, she kills old people. When someone comes to the house, because he's like trying to find Paul and like asking questions, she runs over him with a fucking lawnmower. Like, this bitch is crazy. All I'm gonna say is, like, it was fun and so much more fucked up than the movie, but I had a really, really fun time with this book. I cannot rave highly enough about this book. Like, is Stephen King the best author? No. Is he incredibly creative in how he writes his characters and his stories? Absolutely. Okay, my jaw is starting to get sore. Next, I read The Midnight Library, okay? I have avoided this book for so long because I just didn't think it was going to be my kind of book. I thought it was going to be preachy. I thought it was going to be like, love your life, you don't know how fortunate you are. And I was talking to some of the girls from my old book club, and they were like, it's actually not that preachy, like, it's a really, really good book. So then I read it, and it was absolutely fucking predictable. It ended exactly the way that I thought it would, and by the end, I felt like it was preachy. If you don't know, this book follows a woman who decides to kill herself, and she comes to in this library, and it is a library full of books that tell a different life story of hers. Like, if she made one different decision, there's a whole book about what would have happened after she made that decision, right? So she gets to jump into these books and go through all of her different lives and find one that maybe she likes better than the one she actually lived. It was so preachy. It was so preachy. I fucking hate books like this. It was just so preachy. I absolutely hated it. I will not pick up anything this author writes. I knew what I was going into, and I like ignored my instincts, and I did not enjoy it. I have since lent this book to my mom. If she ever reads it, she can fucking keep it. Like, I do not want it on my shelves. Next, I read Woman Down by Miss Colleen Hoover. Guys, this book was fucking unhinged. I don't know how to explain how I felt reading this book. I didn't know what this book was about. It sounded exactly like a fictionalized version of Colleen Hoover's life. That's what I got from the plot summary. That's not really what's happening. In this book, we follow an author. She's essentially been cancelled. She goes to the little lake that she always stays at when she's doing like her own personal writing retreat. And while she's there, she meets this cop named Saint. And very quickly, their lives become entangled. That's all I'm going to say. Like, was this a thriller? Kind of. Was this a romance? Kind of. Was a lot of this, like, very, very reminiscent of Colleen Hoover's actual life? Kind of. Did I enjoy it? Kind of. Like, I give this a 2.5 star. There were things I thought were really fun about this, and there was just as many things that I thought were so goddamn fucking stupid. I'm not going to get into the absolute fucking stupidity of our main character, okay? Without getting into spoilers, there were so many things she did where I'm like, are you a woman living on Earth in 2026? In the context of this book, if this fucking main character ended up fucking dead, I would have been like, what did she fucking expect? Like, she's a fucking idiot. But it was also fun. So I'm glad I didn't buy this book. I got the audio from my library, so I'm glad I didn't pay for it. I'm also glad I didn't buy it. But it was so fucking bizarre. It was such a weird book for Colleen Hoover. I will say, to me, it was different than anything she's written before, which is probably a good thing. Like, at least she's changing it up. That's all I have to say about that. Like, I don't know where to go from here. Next, I read Flawless by Alti Silver. The first book in the series. I gave this 4 stars. It was like a thick looking book. It was actually a very, very quick book. It was very fun to get through. We are following a bull rider who's like kind of screwing up his reputation, and his agent is like, I'm sending my daughter to babysit you, so you know, get your shit together. And obviously sparks fly and they fall in love and it's all cute. I gave it, what did I give it? A 4 star. I feel like a 4 star is my default rating for a romance that I really, really enjoyed, but that I'm not sure I would reread. Okay, I enjoyed this. It was fun. It's fast paced. I liked it. It was cute. It was wholesome. There was a bit of spice, but like not too much. There was some plot reveals. Really enjoyed. But yeah, I don't know if I'm ever going to reread this. I do plan on continuing with the series for now. But I'm also not super committed to holding on to these books. So we'll see where we go from there. Next, I read, oh, my favorite book of the month, Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. So one of my goals this year is to completely catch up with Alice Feeney's releases. So I've only got 2 to read after this one. This was a 5-star book, okay? We are following a woman named Daisy. Can you believe I was actually going to look at the back of the book to try and figure out the main character's name? It's obviously time for me to go to bed. Anyway, moving on. We are following a main character, Daisy. Her family is very split apart, very broken. She's got 2 sisters, her mom, her dad, who are divorced. She's got a niece from one of her sisters, and then she's got her gran, and she loves her gran more than anything in the world. Her gran is like her best friend. And it's Gran's 80th birthday, which falls on Halloween every year, but it is her 80th birthday this Halloween. And Gran was told years before that she was going to die she wasn't going to pass 80 years old. So the nan's like, look guys, it's my 80th birthday. We don't know how much longer I'm going to live past my 80th birthday, so we're having a fucking family reunion. So they all go to this island called Seaglass to have like a little family assembly and have a little party. What I'm going to say is, you really need to wait until yeah, you gotta wait about 60 pages for the action to really pick up. The first 60 pages is very much like showing you the dynamics between everyone in this family, but this book was so fucking fun. Alice Feeney just has the most fun. The only book of hers that I did not think was like fun or twisty in a really cool way was His and Hers. I didn't really like that book. I'm sorry, like, I know it's a TV show now, but like, I didn't really enjoy the book. Now, there's a thing that happens in this book. I'm not going to spoil it, but I know it's a thing that I feel like a lot of people won't enjoy or appreciate. I did, because I did not suspect. I just thought it was fun, man. I love this book. 5 stars. Favorite of the month, I think. Next, I have When in Rome by Sarah Adams. Now, this is the first book in the, I think it's called the When in Rome series, but it follows a group of siblings, the Walker siblings. In this book, we're following pop sensation, who is taking a break. Like, she is fucking done. She needs to take a break before she goes on tour. Ends up in a small town, ends up in this guy's front yard when her car breaks down. He's a gentleman, and due to other circumstances, he is like, look, you can stay in my house until your car's fixed. And he owns a pie shop, and like, this was just very sweet vibes. Like, Noah Walker is one of the sweeter protagonists I've read from in a while. I gave this book, wouldn't you know it, a 4 star. I thought it was cute, okay? I liked it. I liked the dynamic. I liked the ending. And there are 3 other books in the series now, so I think I'm going to try and get to the second one in March, but that remains to be seen, okay? Next, I picked up A Road to with a Vampire by Jenna Levine. Levine? I don't know. This is the 3rd and final book in the, I think it's called the My Vampire series. It is the last book in the series. If I had to rank the series, I would go 2nd book, then 3rd book, then 1st book. So this falls middle of the pack. I enjoyed this book. So we are following a witch named Zelda. She is trying to choose her powers. She's trying to be a good person now, and she owns a yoga studio. One day, this like really handsome stranger shows up outside her yoga studio at night, and he seems like really confused and lost, and she's like, okay, weird. Next day he comes back and she realizes, motherfucker, he's a vampire. a vampire who has amnesia and doesn't know who he is or what he's doing here. It was a really fun book. Like I said, I love a romance with a road trip element. This had that, and I like these characters together. Overall, good vibes. I didn't love the third act breakup, and I didn't love the resolution for that, but that's kind of been a running theme throughout the series. Like, the big bad is always solved really, really quickly, which it was in this one, and then the third act breakup, I never love, and I never love the resolution, but like, I like the journey, I just don't like the destination, or I don't like how we get to the destination. I'm sorry, I'm getting very tired, and my jaw is, I haven't spoken this much in 4 days, like my jaw is starting to get really sore. Next, I read Your Favorite Scary Movie by Ashley Collins. This was a 3.5-star book for me. It is a non-fiction book all about the conception, production, and legacy of the Scream series, and I had fun with this book. I loved this. It was fun. I learned a lot of trivia. There was like some juicy gossip in here. The only thing I didn't love is that there were a lot of names being thrown around throughout this entire book. I feel like this needed a like, well, it wouldn't be characterless because they're all real people, but if there was like some sort of glossary that I could refer to, because like someone will be mentioned in like chapter 1 as a producer, and then like 3 chapters later they'll be referenced again, and I'll be like, but what did they do on the set? I don't remember who they are. That was the biggest problem for me, but I kind of just like started ignoring that. Like, it got to a point where I'm like, I'm not gonna go back and try and figure out where all these people are from. But yeah, there was a lot of names being thrown around throughout this book, so that was probably the worst thing for me. I also started to lose interest when they were talking about Scream 3 and 4, because those are the ones I remember the least, so that's a me problem. But it did really make me want to rewatch the series. I would recommend this. If you're a fan of Scream, I think you will be interested in this book. Give this one a read if you're interested. 3.5 stars from me. Next, I read If You Tell a Lie by Lucinda Berry. This was a 3-star. It was probably one of my least favorite Lucinda Berrys to date. This follows 4 women that went to summer camp together when they were teenagers. Then one year, something happened. Something big and scary happened. They all promised that they would never speak about this again. And like, however many years later, 12, 15 years later, they're all grown adults with their own lives. They haven't spoken since camp. And one of them reaches out and basically says, guys, you need to come to my house. We got things to talk about. I didn't love this book. The problem for me with this book was it didn't seem to have a direction. Love Lucinda Berry, okay? But I do think that in this book, it's almost like she was kind of, and again, could be wrong, it felt like she just started writing. And I felt like she didn't really know where the book was going to end, or like maybe she had an idea of where it was going to end, but she didn't know how to get there, so she just wrote, and whatever came out was what she stuck with. Again, no shade, I actually really love Lucinda Berry as an author. I love so many of her books, but this one just felt, yeah, very vague in its plot. It was a bit of a strange book. I didn't really like any of the characters. I found all 4 main characters incredibly unlikable, but at the same time, their voices were all very similar, so it was very hard to tell them apart. I actually had like a post-it note inside this book where I would like write things about each character to try and remember which one was which. Yeah, I'm actually going to unhaul this book, so I'm a little bit sad. I don't really want to keep it. Like, I'm never going to read it. I'm probably going to forget the plot in like a week or 2, so this one is unfortunately getting unhauled. Next, I read Hard Copy by Fionn Veldman. Now, I've always loved this cover. I think this cover is so fucking cute. I think this person, adorable. I do think the tagline of this is a story of girl meets printer, very misleading, okay? This book, I think, is generally pitched as a crazy girl who falls in love with a printer at her office. That is literally not what the book is about, even close. Like, that's not what the book is about. What is the book about? I couldn't tell you. I have no idea what the fuck this book was about. This book was strange, okay? We're following our main character. I don't think she has a name. She works for this company. She frequently talks to her printer. So her co-workers think that she's always talking on the phone, but she's like talking to her printer. And then she gets put on leave, and she's very stressed that she won't be able to talk to her printer anymore. She also is telling her printer like the story of her childhood, where essentially she ran a nonce out of town. Like, that's cool. I don't know why we're talking about it, but I guess that could have been a childhood trauma that explains some of her behaviors. It definitely doesn't. She befriends a mailman? Which Stranger Danger apparently isn't a thing, and I'm gonna like maybe spoil it, tiny baby spoiler. The printer is also cognizant, okay? The printer has his own POV for a full chunk of this book. I don't know why, okay? I don't know why. I didn't really like the way it ended. It definitely wasn't like a romance. Like these, I don't want to say these two characters, but like these two characters, the girl and her printer, have like I'd say a codependent relationship. I don't know. It was just a weird book, man. I gave it a 2.5 star. Like there were some parts, nope, I gave it a 2 star. There were some parts of this that were interesting. There were some parts of this where I was like, ugh, you're so close to like being comprehensible to me. You're so close. And that just never quite got there. I really would have read an entire book about her childhood, but instead it's like thrown into the story and like we don't know why. The last book that I read in the month of February was The House of Hidden Meanings by Mr. RuPaul Charles. This was a memoir. I know some people don't like reading memoirs or non-fictions. I don't mind doing it, so I gave this a 2.5 star. This was what initially started as a very interesting book and then became very repetitive and dry to me. This book is a memoir. Like, I've already said that, right? We start from RuPaul's childhood, his relationships with his mom, his dad, his sisters, and basically follow him all the way through to his fame. Like, getting, not like the start of Drag Race, but, you know, being famous enough that people recognized him. And it just, like, I was so interested by RuPaul's childhood, okay? Learning about his mother, his father, their fucking tumultuous relationship, his sisters and how they interacted with the parents. Like, that was all very interesting to me. I do like family dynamics. I like learning about them. And then the other 60% of the book is Ru doing drugs and meeting people and then no longer talking to that person and then meeting them again years later and then starting a band with them and then going to a club with them and then doing drugs with them. And it just felt very repetitive. Like, if that's Ru's life, that's Ru's life. I just didn't really see the point. I'm not trying to say that Ru's life is boring. I just don't necessarily think that Ru pulled the most interesting or the most introspective stories. I feel like some of the chapters were literally just like, I did drugs, I met these people, they were really cool, and then we parted ways, and I didn't love it. So, sorry. So yeah, I gave it 2.5 stars. Like I said, there was a lot of things that I did find interesting about Ruth's childhood. I don't think the writing style was particularly bad. I just, yeah, I got bored, which is never like a great thing to get when you're reading a book. Anyways, what a fun fucking video that was, guys. What did you guys read in January and February? What do you plan to read in March? I will hopefully actually film a March wrap up next month, so I don't have to do another fucking hour-long video. Okay, bye!